today was written for Mother's Day. It's called For Mom.
a moment you were mine to hold. The plans that heaven has for you will all too soon unfold. So many different prayers I pray for all that you might do. But most of all, I want to know you're walking in the truth. And if I never told you, I want you to know that as I watch you grow, I pray that God will fill your heart with dreams, and that faith gives you the courage to dare to do great things. I'm here for you, whatever this life brings. So let my love give you roots and help you find your wings. May passion be the wind that leads you through your days, and may conviction keep you strong and guide you on your way. May there be many moments that makes your life so sweet, but more than memories, I pray that God will fill your heart with dreams, and that faith gives you the courage to dare to do great things. I'm here for you, whatever this life brings. So let my love give you roots and help you find your wings. I pray that God will fill your heart with dreams, and that faith gives you the courage to dare to do great things. I'm here for you, whatever this life brings. So let my love give you roots and help you find your wings. And help you find your wings. And help you find your wings.
Kat, that was beautiful, and we are always so blessed to come here and hear your gorgeous voice and this amazing band led by Richard Schulman, Dave, Joel, Pete. Thank you for being here every Sunday and filling us with music. Welcome to Unity of the Blue Ridge, and welcome here on this Mother's Day Sunday. If you are a mother and feel great about that, then I say to you, Happy Mother's Day. If you have a complicated relationship with your mother or a complicated relationship with your own sense of mothering or motherhood or lack thereof or whatever, I say bless you and thank you for being here because I know sometimes this can be a hard Sunday to come if there's something in your life that makes it difficult. I remember I had had a miscarriage just a couple of weeks before Mother's Day Sunday, and I really didn't want to go to church that Sunday. But since I was the minister, I thought they might frown upon me not being there. So I showed up. But I know it can be a mixed blessing. And within that, I like to remember one of my favorite images from Scripture is that of God as a mother hen who puts her wings out over her brood and brings them all in close. So in that image of God as mother hen gathering us in today, I invite you into a time of prayer. Holy and loving Mother God, thank you for gathering us in. Thank you for gathering us in here to this place on this Sunday with this group of people. We open ourselves to hear what you would have us hear, say what you would have us say, sing what you would have us sing. May this time be full of joy. May it be full of wisdom and blessing and love from the people around us. And on this gorgeous spring day, may we remember that we stand on Mother Earth, being held in those loving arms, provided for. Thank you, God. And so it is. Each week as we gather, we remind ourselves what it is that we like to affirm. And so let's affirm together. There is only one presence and power active in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotence. And our mission together here as a community, we are an inclusive, inspiring spiritual community, embracing our divinity and joyfully evolving together. And so it is.
Please stand me and join me in the congregational song. It's something new. It's called Simple Gifts. And Reverend Laura is making her musical debut as the lead singer today.
I am not the lead singer. I apologize in advance. It's actually a very old Shaker tune. So some of you may know it as the Copeland Spring thing, or the American Airlines commercial. Anyway, this is a gift. It was the American Airlines. Anyway, all right.
Tis the
Gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed to turn. Will be a delight till by turning we come round right. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed to turn. Will be our delight till by turning we come round right.
So turn round right and greet your neighbor with a happy Mother's Day hello.
Thank you.
continue to stand for our second song, which is called More Than Enough. There is more than enough in you. Reverend Laura, come on up for your debut.
You can do it.
We are having technical issues today. That technical issue being me.
Okay. There is more than enough in a universe that you created. There is more than enough on a planet of sacred design. There is more than enough for humanity made in your image. Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without? Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without?
Your infinite love
made everything I see.
This is live.
Want to do that part again?
We're going to take it from the chorus. Just keep going. 1, 2, 3. Your infinite love made me, made everything I see, and all that will ever be is your infinite love. Let my soul know the truth, whatever I choose to do, your infinite love will prove more than enough. There is more than enough in a universe that you created. There is more than enough on a planet of sacred design. There is more than enough for humanity made in your image. Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without? Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without? Your infinite love made me everything I see, and all that will ever be is your infinite love. Let the world know the truth, whatever we choose to do, your infinite love will prove more than enough. That last line, more than enough, more than enough.
Can never have too much fun. Good morning, everyone. My name is Reverend Christy, and I am one of the associate ministers here in church administration, so AKA glue. So if you have any questions about anything in our community, go ahead and ask me, and I'm happy to joyfully point you probably in the right direction. Now is the time in the service where I invite you to please silence your cell phones. If you can turn them all the way off, that would be wonderful. There's a few announcements that I want to make, and first, before I do that, I do want to welcome those of you who are new here. If this is your first time visiting, if this is your first time in a long time, we would love to acknowledge you and bless you and welcome you. Is there anybody new? Well, welcome, 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 welcome. There you go. You're being handed a blue card, and if you fill out your information of that, we do hold your contact information private, confidentially, and if you add your email, we'll add you to our weekly e-news list, which is sent out every Thursday, let you know of all the really cool things happening here in our community. So we'd love to extend a blessing to you. So let us just rub our hands together, hold them out, open our hearts, and say, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. And I do have some announcements that there are no slides for. First, do you remember a while back we did a food drive with Landon Barnwell, who was doing that project through our community for his Eagle Scout. Just want to know that that's all been approved, and in June he will become an Eagle Scout. So it's, yeah, just wanted to acknowledge that. So thank you as a community for supporting his work in the world and his calling. Also, we found this fabulous watch out in the parking lot. Happy Mother's Day to me. And so I will be holding this under lock and key in my office. If anybody recognizes it, please send them my way. In the meantime, I'll just look stunning. So I wanted to share with you a few events happening. We have our Healing the Heart of Democracy groups. They're meeting 4 times. We have one on Thursday evenings with Reverend Jane Nelson. We have one on Saturdays with Reverend Deborah O'Geist. Even though the Saturday one has already begun, there are still openings in that group, and it's a wonderful opportunity to come together, have a really deep conversation about how to support our communities in a way that nurtures all of us, we the people. So if that interests you, the books are also available in our bookstore. If you're interested in that, there are sign-up sheets out in the lobby, or you can see me following our service today. Also, we participate in an outreach project called Feed the Kids Coalition, where we unite with other organizations, and coming up on Friday, June 1st, is our turn as Unity of the Blue Ridge, where we cook and prepare meals here, and then that food is transferred or transported over to the Boys and Girls Club in Hendersonville, where we serve over 300 kids, and sometimes it's the only hot meal they get. And if you would like to volunteer on any level with that, whether cooking here or helping to transport the food or serving over at the Boys and Girls Club in Hendersonville, it's June 1st. And Jerry, kindly, you are in the room. If you could stand, please see Jerry. If you would like contact information for Jerry, you can see me or her and volunteer for that. It's a wonderful opportunity to reach out into the greater community. We have our photo directories available. If you were in our initial directory, you do get a free directory with that. If you did not get in there, or you would like to change your picture, we have the opportunity coming up on Friday, June 1st, and Saturday, June 2nd. You can bring your pets, you can bring your musical instruments, you can bring your family, whatever you would like to be included in that photo. It's all welcome here. The photo sessions do take place here, and there are sign-up sheets out in the lobby as well, and you can see Reverend Andy following today's service about that as well. And you can also, we really encourage you to go online. We shut them down on Sundays, so we have the paper sign-up sheets for the sessions, but it's really easy to go online. If you go to our website, it has the direct link to schedule your own appointment. So have a look-see there. And then next Sunday is May 20th, and we are having one combined service because it is time for our quarterly town hall meeting. So one combined service at 10:30 next Sunday, May 20th, at what time? 10:30. So all of us will be gathering in here at 10:30. We encourage you to bring a bag lunch and stay for our town hall meeting. We will have an update from the Master Planning Committee on all the plans and ideas that have come through the surveys and ideas about our growth and expansion here and the current business here of Unity of the Blue Ridge. So everyone is invited to attend that. With that, we are aware, and I would like to invite Reverend Andy Carlson, another associate minister here, to share our inspirational reading.
Thank you, Reverend Christie. She really is the glue that holds this place together, and I'm so grateful to be your associate. How many of us have mothers? Okay, I see 3 or 4 hands. Well, happy Mother's Day to all our mothers. The inspirational reading that I have today is called The Gift of Simplicity to Will One Thing. And it was written by Brother David Vryhoff. One of the virtues most sought after by the early desert mothers and fathers, and by generations of monastics, saints, and mystics who came after them, was the virtue of purity of heart. Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher and theologian, captured the essence of purity of heart and of Christian simplicity in the title of his book, Purity of Heart is to Will One Thing. This one thing, he said, is God and God's kingdom. We are to seek and to love God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and with all our strength. The simplicity we need has both an inward direction and an outward expression. Inwardly, it seeks an integration of the self that is rooted in our identity as beloved children of God. When we know ourselves to be children of God above all else, we find the freedom to let go of the need to compete for status, success, and popularity. We can let go of jealousy, envy, and pride. Our hearts are fixed on one thing: knowing and loving and serving God. Everything else then assumes its rightful place and order in our lives. As our hearts become pure, others will notice changes in the ways that we speak, the way we dress, the way we work, the way we conduct ourselves. We will grow in appreciation for ordinary things. We will be content with less. Our hearts will fill with gratitude for the beauty and wonder of creation, for the gift of life, and for the loving kindness of God. We will grow in concern for the world and its peoples and for our environment. We will be increasingly skeptical of our consumerist culture, and we will grow in compassion for the poor. Our lives will become simpler, more generous, and more authentic.
Take away the melodies, take away the songs I sing, take away all the lights, and all the songs you let me write. Does the girl I am today say the words you need to say? Let them see you in me. Let them hear you when I speak. Let them feel you when I sing. Let them see you. Let them see you in me. Who am I without your grace? Another smile, another face, another breath, a grain of sand, passing quickly through your hand. I give my life an offering, see you in me. Let them hear you when I speak. Let them feel you when I sing. Let them see you. Let them see you in me. With every breath I breathe, I sing a simple melody. I pray that they hear more than a song in me, in me. Let them see you in me. Let them hear you when I speak. Let them feel you when I sing. Let them see you. Oh, let them see you in me. Let them hear you when I speak. Let them feel you when I sing. Let them see you. Let them see you in me. Let them see you in me.
I think we see God in you each time you sing for us, Kat. So thank you. And thank you to this amazing band, Dave, Richard, Joel, and Pete. Thank you for the beauty that you share with us week after week. I didn't mention that the reason I'm up here is that Rev Darlene is leading, is one of the leaders of the retreat at Unity Village this weekend. So she will be back, I believe, Tuesday, back in the office. So did any of you see the images from the Met Gala this week? So every year, the Metropolitan Museum of Art has this big fundraiser benefit, and they have a costume theme each time. And this year's theme was Heavenly Bodies, Fashion and the Catholic Imagination. And I heard that, and I was like, the Catholic imagination. But for example, here's pop icon Rihanna as the Pope. And then we've also got Chad Boseman, AKA Black Panther, as, I don't know, an archbishop or something. I never learned all the different details of those things. But whatever he is, I'd sit in his amen corner. Now, granted, I don't really know much about high fashion. I don't get it, to be honest. But I can't help but look at these kinds of images and think, that's a bit excessive. And I suppose these costumes were making a statement about the religion that inspired them, that maybe the point was that some of these religious accoutrements that we put around ourselves are kind of excessive. Maybe we don't need all that. I don't know, though. When I was a Presbyterian minister, I wore a black plain robe every Sunday. And I had all these Episcopalian friends who got to wear like these little pretty bibs and things and embroidered. I was kind of jealous. I wanted something prettier. Many of the Protestant reformers who broke off from the Roman Catholic Church back in the 1500s reacted to what they viewed as a sense of excess at that time. And so they encouraged very plain, simple music and dress and churches for their leaders and their followers. And taken to an extreme then, that became like the Amish, who have plain dress and won't even have zippers in their clothing. So in our series that we're doing on sacred intentions, this week's intention is simplify. Many religious traditions across cultures have looked at simplicity as both an inner and an outer process. Simplicity of dress became one example of how to simplify one's outer appearance as part of a practice of simplifying one's inner world. But other religious traditions took a very different approach and believed that color and beauty are ways of magnifying and honoring the glory of creation and the Creator. When I was a little girl, my parents would bring me here to conferences at Montreat Conference Center, which is out near Black Mountain. And one of the conferences we often attended was called the World Mission Conference. And when I was there, I would see these women from around the world, and there'd be these Indian women in these gorgeous silk saris. And then I'd see the African women with their bright geometric patterns from their headdress all the way down to their feet. And I was this little kid from rural Missouri, and I would walk around thinking, I think white people must be the dullest people in the world. Simple doesn't need to mean dull. But what does it mean? What does it mean for us to simplify both our inner and our outer lives? Do you remember the bumper sticker, "Live simply so that others may simply live"? When I hear the call to simplify, that's the first direction my mind goes. How can I simplify my own life so that the way that I walk on the earth honors and respects all life? So today is Mother's Day, as we've mentioned a couple of times, and while I am immensely grateful for my own mother and for my son who made me a mother, today Mother Earth is on my mind. I am painfully aware that Mother Earth needs our honoring more than at any other point in human history. When I first visited this church, I noticed all the posters and signs everywhere discussing reducing, reusing, and recycling, and the efforts that were being made to get rid of paper products wherever possible. And that sensitivity to sustainability is one of the things that drew me back to this congregation. As a child of the 70s, I was shaped by my own generation's desire to put the Earth's health at the center of our awareness. I married a man who worked for Greenpeace at the time, and much of our life together centered around reducing our carbon footprint. Everything from the cloth diapers that we hung out to dry to the containers that we'd carry with us to restaurants so we wouldn't have styrofoam for our leftovers, and the ways we divested from companies that didn't honor the earth, and organic co-ops we helped start. All of our daily decisions were sort of based on how would this impact the earth. And there's another slide here, and if any of you are interested afterwards, I can talk to you about the corn-burning stove that we use to heat our house, and the corn co-op we started in Washington, D.C. to fuel our stove. We were serious about it. When I was looking for this image online, I discovered that these stoves were invented in Fletcher, North Carolina, and are still manufactured here. Who knew? So to simplify, what does it mean to simplify? To live lightly on the earth is a commitment to honor the resources that we all share. But living simply is not always simple. It can require research into products that are made in sustainable ways from sustainable materials, and they often cost more, which then puts them out of reach for most of the world's population. One day, a member of my congregation visited me in my house in DC, and I wanted to show off my corn-burning stove. So Mary, this member of the congregation, was from a very poor village in Kenya. She had been a teacher there, and she had noticed that many of her children were dropping out of school because so many of them were being orphaned by the AIDS crisis. And so she knew she had to start a home for these AIDS orphans. And as that home grew, her teacher salary couldn't help all of these kids. And so she decided to move to the United States to make money as a cleaning woman because she could make more money doing that and send it back to the orphanage in Africa. So that's how I got to know Mary. And as I showed her the stove, I watched this shadow cross her face. And she turned to me and she said, "You are burning the food that is sent to us in Africa in times of famine." What does it mean to simplify our lives in a complex global economic system? How do we simplify our relationship with the resources of the earth and all of her peoples and creatures? Understanding ourselves as intricately woven into this web of life, this is one way that our spirituality can support our choices towards sustainability. When we know, not just in our heads, but sort of all the way down, that we really are connected by this one power, this one presence. We're connected physically and spiritually. Then we can begin to live more gently, not because we know we should, but because it becomes in us a longing to live in harmony with the rhythms of the earth. Living wisely within our own ecosystem and the larger ecosystem keeps us in that perfect balance and flow of the universal tides of giving and receiving that we recite each week. But what is it that sustains our own efforts towards sustainability? So when my husband and I, the Greenpeace guy, divorced, I found that I didn't do nearly as good a job at paying attention to my carbon footprint. Suddenly, I was a single mom of an 8-year-old, and I was living in a 1929 cottage that needed a lot of work, and my live-in handyman had moved out. We had moved to Asheville without jobs, because that seemed like a good idea at the time. And the only people I knew were my parents, and my mother was a full-time caregiver for my father, who was in the last couple of years of his life. This was not the simplest year of my life. My confidence was at its lowest point, so making new friends or starting a new career just felt like this uphill battle. And with all that was on my plate, whether or not I used paper towels just didn't rise to the top of my list of concerns. It's hard to focus on the big picture when you're worried about paying the bills. So I went through a couple of very humbling years. And that's not a bad thing. Because as Parker Palmer writes, being brought low may be the hand of a friend trying to press us down to ground on which it is safe to stand. The ground of our own truth, the ground of our natures with their complex mix of limits and gifts, liabilities and assets, darkness and light. So with this humility came a deeper compassion for myself and for other people. During this time, I realized that as deep as I thought my commitment to the earth was, it needed to be grounded in something even deeper than it had been. And that deeper thing was a sense of sufficiency. This spring, more than 40 people in this congregation participated in a 6-week series on sacred abundance and purposeful living. And using material that Rev. Darlene created and drawing on Lynn Twist's book, The Soul of Money, we examined several false beliefs. One is, that's just how it is. Another is, more is better. And the big one is, there's not enough. As the director of the Hunger Project, which is an international nonprofit with the little goal of trying to eliminate world hunger, Twist has spent much of her life around people who live in crushing conditions with a lack of food, water, shelter, opportunities, freedom. And those lacks drive all their decisions. However, she's also spent a lot of time fundraising among some of the world's wealthiest people, people who have more money, more clothes, more cars, more food, more opportunities, more freedom, more everything. And yet she noticed that their conversations also were dominated by what they don't have. The refrain of not enough swims through our days. We wake up, oh, I didn't get enough sleep. Not enough time, not enough love, not enough money, not enough something. The counter to there's not enough is a belief in sufficiency. Twist writes this about sufficiency. Sufficiency isn't 2 steps from above poverty or 1 step short of abundance. It isn't a measure of barely enough or more than enough. Sufficiency isn't an amount at all. It's an experience, a context we generate, a declaration, a knowing that there is enough and we are enough. So following that year that I left both my marriage and my career, I went through this 3-year period of going back to school and trying to start a couple of businesses and just really, honestly, having no idea what I was going to do with my life. Do I want to go to law school? What about studying journalism? Maybe I should get a degree as a counselor. I putzed around doing a little of this and that, and I ended up living below the poverty level during that time. Now, if I had been maybe a little self-righteous about my environmentalism, that paled in comparison to how I believed I managed money. Having put myself through graduate school and then working in small urban churches, I never made much money, but I managed it well. I saved, I was frugal, I still had fun and traveled. I never felt like I was at want. I tithed, I invested. And by my mid-30s, I felt like I was doing pretty darn well. Living frugally didn't bother me. Being poor, though, had never been part of the plan. The day I had to go to social services to sign up for Medicaid for my son was mortifying to me. The workers there confused me for a social worker rather than a client. This was not a position that I ever imagined my solidly middle-class self ever being in. But humility really is good for the soul. Because in those years of barely being able to take care of myself and my son financially, I realized I had enough. I always had enough. It was not even close to what I had thought was enough a few years earlier. After years of shopping at Whole Foods, I was now scrounging through the bent cans on the floor at Go Grocery. And you know what? It was fine. It was just fine. Even now, I'll still go and I'll walk into a Whole Foods every now and then and go, oh my gosh, who pays these prices? It's like, oh, my 42-year-old self did, that's who. The journey to understanding that I could really be fine on less than a quarter of what I had thought was a low salary before was one of the most liberating experiences of my life. Having worked with people in poverty for much of my adult life, I knew that I was incredibly well off in countless ways. I had bought a new reliable car before my finances went south, so I always had reliable transportation. My son and I were healthy, so we had very few medical expenses. And when I would get in my head on the worst case scenarios, I always ended up living with my mom, who had a nice house in Black Mountain, and I liked her, so that was not a bad thing. So I realized most of the world's people do not live with that kind of wealth that I had in those moments. But my comfort didn't come from that comparison. My comfort came from a deep knowing that I was being taken care of every moment of every day. Consider the lilies of the field. how they neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of them. Therefore, do not be anxious. Do not be anxious. I was surprised that I found myself worrying less about money then than I had when I was sort of constantly watching the stock market to see how my meager little investments were doing. I regained something that I knew I had had growing up, but somewhere in those decades of building my career, I had sort of lost track of. And that was that sense of sufficiency. A sense that my life was held by something larger than my mistakes or my indecisions. A sense that I was existing within the womb of God, a place of safety and nourishment and plenty. Twist writes, so often we think of abundance as that point at which we'll know we've arrived. But abundance continues to be elusive if we think we'll find it in some excessive amount of something. True abundance does exist. It flows from sufficiency, in an experience of the beauty and wholeness of what is. She goes on, abundance is a fact of nature. It is a fundamental law of nature that there is enough and it is finite. Its finiteness is no threat. It creates a more accurate relationship that commands respect, reverence, and managing those resources with the knowledge that they're precious and in ways that do the most good for the most people. So to simplify requires a trust in sufficiency, a belief that there is enough and we are enough. And this trust requires us to drop deeper, I think, into what motivates us. What drives our actions? What shapes our thoughts? What guides our decisions? I want to tell you the story of one of my personal heroes of the faith. John Woolman was born in 1720 in New Jersey. He was a Quaker, and he died of smallpox at age 52 in 1772. His journal was published after his death in 1774, before this nation's revolution, and it's never been out of print since. I read it for the first time when I was 20 years old. Being a Quaker, Woolman writes in his journal that even as a very small child, he began to become acquainted with the operations of divine love. I like that phrase, the operations of divine love. As a clerk for a shopkeeper at age 23, he refused to write a bill of sale for a slave, saying that he found it inconsistent with his faith. With this realization came a sense of calling for him. So now when he would visit friends or family who had slaves, he would refuse to be served by them, or if he was served by them, he would take them aside and pay them. He stopped eating sugar because sugar was a crop produced by slaves. He began wearing undyed clothing because dyeing was a harsh process often done by slaves, and the indigo crop needed for the dyeing was a slave product. He became a merchant himself, but he refused to sell items in his shop that were produced by slave labor. And he refused to write wills for people in which they were trying to bequeath slaves to another generation. Woolman began working less and less in his shop and traveling more and more to speak to people one-on-one about this concern on his heart. And he went up and down the colonies, visiting Quakers and talking to them on the issue of slavery. Eventually, he had to close his shop, and he became a tailor to make money for himself. He found that was a little more adaptable to his travel schedule. But it's said of him by others that he spoke to people with such love and respect about his beliefs that rather than being shamed into freeing their slaves, they came to see the truth for themselves. Because of this one man's influence, Quakers became the first religious institution in America to publicly denounce slavery and the first to require their members to free their slaves. And then for the next 100 years, Quakers became the leaders in the abolitionist movement and critical in the development of the Underground Railroad. Woolman lived sustainably, aware of his connection to all of God's children and their worth and their work. And he clearly lived with a deep sense of sufficiency, willing to forgo income rather than to sell things that he felt went against his own sense of integrity. But most importantly, he came from a place of divine love. He talked from his center. Woolman's outward simplicity did not emerge from a checklist of things he ought to be doing. It emerged from an inner way of knowing. There was an inner simplicity to his decision-making, a simple integrity that created deep changes in him and had a great influence of love and justice in all the people that he met. And Woolman writes that his inner simplicity came from his life with God. From a young age, he spoke of an inner light guiding him. This, I believe, is the heart of true simplicity. It's a kind of single-minded devotion to one central organizing truth in your life. Our lives become more simplified when we give wholehearted attention to that one thing that Andy spoke about, that to will one thing that matters above all else. We may call this the spirit of truth. We may call it love or divine wisdom. We may name it as the one power and one presence active in the universe and in our lives. We may say that it's to love God with all our hearts and minds and soul and strength, to love our neighbors as ourselves, knowing that these are one and the same, that God is in our neighbors and we are in God and we are all in each other. That one love is connecting us in a tender web. Whatever we call it, what is that one organizing thought? Another Quaker, Thomas Kelly, wrote a book of essays called A Testament of Devotion, and the last essay in that book is called The Simplification of Life. Written in the 1930s, it still sounds very contemporary to me because he talks about the complexity of modern life where we feel bowed down with burdens and crushed under committees and strained and breathless and hurried and panting through a never-ending program of events. And yet he notes that when we withdraw to spend time in quiet, we feel the guilty call of citizenship whispering disquieting claims in our ears. Writing this in 1938, he said, "We have more stimulation per square hour than used to be given per square day to our grandmothers." He blamed the radios mostly. Those darn radios. But then he notes that when we do withdraw, we discover it's not the external world that causes our disquiet, but our own minds. Each of us tends, he writes, not to be a single self, but a whole committee of selves. There's the civic self, the parental self, the financial self, the religious self, the society self, the professional self, the literary self, and on and on. And each of ourselves, he says, in turn is a rank individualist, not cooperative, but shouting out his vote loudly for himself when the voting time comes. And all too commonly, we follow the common American method of getting a quick decision among conflicting claims within us. It's as if we have a chairman of our committee of the many selves within us who does not integrate the many into one, but who merely counts the votes at each decision and leaves a disgruntled minority. And so we become unhappy, uneasy, strained, and fearful that we shall be shallow. So Kelly suggests that it will be impossible to simplify the outer decisions until we've found a way to integrate those inner voices. But the good news, he says, is we can. He writes, Life is meant to be lived from a center, a divine center. Each one of us can live a life, such a life of amazing power and peace and serenity, of integration and confidence and simplified multiplicity on one condition. That is, if we really want to. So then the only question, the simple question, really becomes, do we want to? It's a little bit like the lame man that Rev Darlene talked about a couple of weeks ago, who had sat by the pools of Bethesda, the healing waters, for 38 years, but not yet been healed. And Jesus came and said, well, do you want to be healed? Do we want to be integrated? Do we want our lives simplified by the one defining love above all loves? Do we want to give ourselves over to an all-embracing love that accepts us so deeply, so unconditionally, so completely, that our lives are changed from the inside out? Do we want to start and end our days in a peace that passes understanding? Do we want to be made well? I know in my own life, I give myself over to this, and then I take myself back. I surrender, I retreat. I let go, I grasp. My spiritual life becomes this push-pull. Which one's going to win? I want to be nothing but a vessel of divine love flowing through me, and I still want to have the decision-making power. I want my life to only be about loving God with all my heart and mind and strength and soul, and loving my neighbor as myself, but I don't want to seem too weird about it. It's like Flannery O'Connor said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you odd." For myself, I think this push-pull is why I keep circling around into experiences that catch me off guard, that take me out of my comfort zone, that pull the rug out from under me. Over and over, I need to come down to the place where I ought to be, as the Shaker song said. Much of my spiritual life is not about sort of rising up in some spiritual glory, but about coming down to that safe and solid ground under my feet. And when I find myself in that solid and sufficient place, again, I discover that it is a valley of love and delight. It is a place where life is simpler. It is simpler to let the Spirit flow through us and flow with us than to be constantly paddling upstream. Life is meant to be lived from a center, a divine center, and each one of us can live such a life of amazing power and peace and serenity, of integration and confidence and simplified multiplicity, on one condition: if we really want to. So do you want to? Do you want to simplify your life into this one divine center from which all else flows? Do you? Do you want to live from a place of peace and power, of integration and confidence? Do you? What is it that holds us back? What is it that keeps turning to our ego needs for answers? Do we want to know that love that surpasses all love? Do we want to live in that presence, day by day, moment by moment? Do we want to be made well? I wanted to invite us into a time of silence with that question and invite our musicians back up to sing us into that silence. To really hold that question. What is it that stops me from living fully from that place of knowing I am enough?
Gentle Spirit, flow in me. Gentle Spirit, grow in me. Gentle Spirit, show in me. Gentle Spirit, know in me. Gentle Spirit, flow in me. Gentle Spirit, grow in me. Gentle Spirit, show in me. Gentle Spirit, know in me.
And so as we close our eyes and take in a breath, we become aware again that with each breath in, we can be inspired, in-breathed. And with each exhale, we can let go, release whatever is holding us. And on this beautiful spring day, we think about the beauty of the earth bursting forth. And we're reminded of the abundance of new life. Gentle Spirit, whatever it is that keeps us from remembering this abundance, this ever-renewing life, this ever-present source, we ask that it be removed. We ask that we can drop down into such a deep sense of well-being, of knowing we are cared for and loved, that we are precious. That this becomes the basis for all of our decisions. We ask that each day we drop deeper into that knowing. And that when we forget, we're gently brought back. And as we sink into a deep sense of being loved, being held, into the center that is our soul's true north, our soul's solid ground, we give thanks. We give thanks for the life that's brought us to this point. And into this place of beauty and love, we bring our own mothers. And we hold them there. Whoever they were, however they were, they brought us into this world. And so we say thank you. And into this space, we bring our own sense of being parents, whether it's literally with children that we've had in our lives, or in other ways that we mother the people around us, the creatures around us, the earth itself. And we say thank you. And now in the quiet, we name anyone that needs to be held in such a deep, loving space. You can just whisper their names. And into that deep, nurturing, nourishing womb of God, whisper your own name. I want to be ready to be made well. Come, Spirit, flow in me.
Gentle Spirit, flow in me. Gentle Spirit, grow in me. Gentle Spirit, show in me. Gentle Spirit, know in me. Gentle Spirit, flow in me. Gentle Spirit, grow in me. Gentle Spirit, show in me. Gentle Spirit, know in me.
Thank you, Reverend Laura, for that invitation to go deeper into that eternal and internal question of who am I? Who have I come here to be? Knowing that we are all fed by that divine wisdom and that invitation to rise in that awareness. Thank you for that. And now is the time in our service where we prepare for our tithes and our offerings. Knowing that who we are makes a difference in the world. All that we do, all that we share, all that we give, the many ways that we give, ripples out into the world in ways unknown to us that touches and uplifts and blesses the world. And these blessings come back to us multiplied. And I invite you to join me in this affirmation together aloud. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. I am now in perfect balance and flow with the universal tides of giving and receiving. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Here's a little song I wrote. You may wanna sing it note for note. Don't worry, Don't worry, y'all. Be happy. In every life we have some trouble, but when you worry, oh, you make it double. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry, be happy now. Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Ain't got no place to lay my head. Somebody came and took my bed. Don't worry. Don't worry, y'all. Be happy. Oh, the landlord said the rent is late. Oh, he may have to litigate. Don't worry. Don't worry, everybody. Be happy. Don't worry, be happy now. Call me anytime. Don't worry, be happy. Sing with me. Look at me, I'm happy. Landlord said the rent is late. Oh, he may have to litigate. Don't worry. Oh, be happy. Somebody came and laid in my bed. Oh, they took my body. And what did I say? I said, don't worry. Don't worry, people. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry. Be happy now. You got my number, you call me. Just come on, call me. Ain't got no cash, ain't got no style. Ain't got no gal that make me smile. Don't worry. Don't worry, people. Be happy. Don't worry, be happy now. Don't worry, be happy. Yeah, one more time. Don't worry, be happy.
Thank you again, Cat Williams and this amazing band. We are so blessed. Reverend Laura, Reverend Andy, all of y'all. I'd like to, all of y'all. I'd like to invite our ushers to come forward, and Julia Bird is one of our prayer chaplains. And over here we have Diane West. We have prayer chaplains available following today's service if you would like support in prayer, if you would like to celebrate something in prayer and lift that prayer up into the universal love that is. You are invited to do that following today's service. Also, Julia is holding our prayer box, which is available outside our bookstore. If you have a prayer request and would like to fill out the pink slip that is out there, we will hold that prayer request in confidence, and it goes to our prayer chaplains, our ministerial team, and then goes out to Silent Unity at Unity Village, and they hold that in prayer for 30 days. And we also have, there's an opportunity on that pink form to fill out, if you know of anybody in the community that has specific care needs, perhaps they're in rehabilitation, or they've been home and would appreciate a phone call or a visit, please let us know that as well, and we can reach out to those in our community to support them. And now let us share a blessing on our gifts. So knowing that there is only one power and one presence, it is infinite, eternal, this divine love and abundance and peace, this source of all life continues to resource itself in our lives. And all that we do, all that we bring, all that we share nurtures this community, nurtures and blesses the community at large around the world, and these blessings come back to bless us abundantly. So we give thanks. We give thanks for this Mother Earth upon which we stand and walk. May we walk gently. We give thanks for those that have nurtured us through our lives. We give thanks for the blessing of divine love, which is everywhere present, within and all around. We let it be. We celebrate it. Yes, and so it is. Perfection. And there is an invitation. We have carnations for those of you who are mothers, for those of you who had mothers, for those of you who have played a part in a nurturing role in life. I know I certainly do in my work. You are invited to take a carnation in celebration of who you are and the nourishment and the nurturing that you bring to all of life. So male, female, come one, come all, until we run out. And I want to acknowledge these awesome flowers from our flower team in honor of Mother's Day. I was told that the white roses represent those in heaven, and the red roses for mothers here. And is Sarah in the room? Yeah, and what were the pink ones? Young mothers, new mothers, there you go. And of course, baby's breath, how appropriate is that? So this is all in celebration of who we all are as we bring our own divine mothering into life. And so let us stand and close with the peace song.
Let there be peace on earth.